Your patience is about to pay off. With the key decisions made, the different elements in place, it's time for the fun part. Let's start creating our front cover together. So we'll be starting from this point in the template document I've provided, but before we do, if I just jump across to my finished version here, I'd like to explain why I think this bold, contrasty heading works so well. And really, the reason is that it's a nod to some very well-known fashion magazines and a whole style that's evolved from this over the years. So by creating something that visually looks similar, this big, bold heading and then the tagline much smaller underneath, we're tapping into someone's perception. Having seen those other classic examples. You could use a client's logo, or you could place here a logo you've mocked up from a previous project. But for now, I just want you to be able to learn and design with as much freedom as possible. So let's get started. And if we go back to our starting point template, perhaps you followed through already and you've come up with your brand name, your subheading, and some fonts and styles that you're happy with there. So if so, and if you haven't already, just copy that into place in this space here. So in my example, I'm going to use Trajan Pro 3. There we are. And the magazine name will be called The Boutique. Quite like that, but instead of Arial, I'll use Futura PT Medium, actually Book, and I'll just adjust the sizing to match what I've done here. So 20 points, tracking at 200, and that should do it. So that's what I've arrived at for my version. Please play with this until you're happy for your own title. And when you're ready and you've finished that, we just want to turn our attention down here. And this is going to use paragraph styles. And these have been set, if you twirl paragraph styles open, under the cover folder. So 2 styles will need to set, one for the cover subheading and one for the description. So again, we're just repeating this process because that's the best way to learn. You may have already done this on your worksheet, but we haven't starred the cover or the contents on this worksheet. So coming back to our cover page, we just want to double click the cover subheading and going to the second tab down, basic character formats. I'm going to change this to Futura PT Book. That's for the subheading. Then the description looks quite good as it is, but let's change it to Minion Pro. And as I demonstrated in an earlier video, I think that's quite an effective combination. So if we hit the W key, you'll see there is a placeholder for a background image here. So I'm going to find the image I think works best for the cover. And I'm going to just drop that in. Use the fill frame proportionately button. And that's looking good, except for the fact there's now almost no contrast behind our title. So I'm going to select those text boxes. You can use Shift to select multiple. Hit the J key or this button down here to look at the color and the formatting for the text, not the bounding boxes. Open our swatches, and you could choose one of the color swatches that you'd created in your palette from the previous lesson. In my case, I'm actually going to stick with grayscale. So I've got the different tones I'll be using just up here, and I'm going to use a stark white to give that, I think, just enough contrast. And there's some interaction with the image behind, but that's still clear and legible. So I think that's fine. What I've done here on the object layer is just place a standard rectangle on my object layer. And you could do this with a different fill color that might give you interesting results. I'm just going to click here to activate the stroke and then hit / to remove the stroke around the edge. Back to the fill color. And what I had done was to use RGB black and then over here lower the opacity to about 50%. And you can see if I compare, that gives you the kind of effect we've got at the bottom behind the text here. So if you wanted, you could do something like that and position it. If we just twirl open the regular view with W and just make sure we drag that out so it bleeds off the page. And in fact, let's make sure the image bleeds, and it doesn't. So let's drag the handles for the image frame and just make sure that bleeds off the page as well. So I did want you to have to work and learn through this template. I guess you'll have to do that because I've not included the bleed on that image placeholder. So there we are, that's now bleeding off the edge. If it was cut, 3mm could be comfortably trimmed off the edge and we're not losing any vital part of the image. So if I close that, I don't think this object is necessary, but that's a nice effect that you could always utilize in future. I think it's a good technique to learn. So I'm going to delete that on my version, and I'm very happy with that cover. Please share as you go along. You don't have to get to the end of the class to show me what you've created. Even at this stage, I'd be really interested to see what covers you've come up with, especially if you do something really different, if you perhaps go for an ultra modern looking brochure. So that's it for our front cover. Next, we'll create a contents page.